Entertainment is brought to you by iGlobal for all the latest film and series reviews, starry interviews and cinema listings covering Bollywood and beyond to reflect a truly pan-Indian entertainment spectrum. Check out the latest at iglobalnews.com.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Living Bridge Conversations live series with me, Arundhati Mukherjee, brought to you by iGlobal, the premier multimedia hub for global Indians. Today, we will be joined by Sangeeta Datta. Sangeeta is a well-known London-based writer, filmmaker, musician, and a curator working between India and the UK. Her books on cinema include World Director Series, Shyam Benegal, and the co-edited Rituparna Ghosh, Cinema, Gender, and Art, and Tagore, The World as His Nest. Her filmography includes the award-winning Life Goes On, and most recently the acclaimed documentary Bird of Dusk. She is also the force behind Boythak UK and SD Films. Of her various accolades and awards, I would like to specially mention the UKBC Shera Bangali Award that she has received only last month, bringing her in the list of top Bengali Community Shapers Award by United Kingdom of Bengali Convention. She is on the board of the British Shakespeare Association. Boythak UK also has just received an award for Best Organization for Culture and Legacy by Greater London Awards. Can we please have Sangeeta Datta on screen with us today? Hello, Sangeeta. Can we please have Sangeeta on screen, please? Hello, Sangeeta.
There you are. Hello,
Hi.
Arundhati. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on the show.
Very warm welcome, and thank you so much for joining us here and for taking your time out actually for busy schedule. And you were telling me before that you will be busy traveling to Spain after this?
Next week, yes, early next week.
So what is taking you to Spain? Would you tell me?
What's taking me to Spain? I have a very old relationship with Spain. I go there quite often. I've been on the jury in the film festival. I go to Casa de la India, which is in Valladolid, to do a lot of events to talk about films. So next week, I'm going to Madrid and then to Barcelona Film Festival, where they are celebrating Satyajit Ray's centenary. And so I'm going to do talks over there in both the cities and introduce the films that are going to be shown. So I'm very excited about that.
As I go on in conversation more with Sangeeta, I will request my viewers to drop in comments, and you can take part in this conversation with us. Please drop in the comments and we will take it along as we go on. And coming back to you, Sangeeta, we know you as a prominent filmmaker and a notable author as well. You are also a Rabindra Sangeet exponent, a playback singer. Tell me, like, what is please take us through this multidisciplinary journey of yours. Which one followed the other? Which one came first?
Yeah, a lot of things happened simultaneously, and it's always a pleasure to talk about things like this when you look back at a journey. But I think I owe a lot to my parents, because as in typical middle class Bengali households, we grew up with a belief in excellence in academics, of course, but along with that, our training in music and dance started very early in life. So my mother, who was also a very good Kathak dancer and a producer of concerts, we used to have concerts every year where we grew up, and also a big spring festival. The Dol Utsav would happen at home. So it's like you remember a lot of other people in Bengal talking about such memories where you grew up collectively with music and dance and literally the joy of creativity at home. And also a lot of artists would come and stay with us when we were young. We would have the Bongo Sanskriti Utsav and a lot of the annual classical music concerts, which would last for 3 nights, and then the theatre festivals, which would last for 3 or 4 nights. So I grew up outside Calcutta. I was born in Calcutta, but I grew up outside Calcutta in Asansol, in an iron and steel town called Burnpur. So that whole region, which is the iron and steel and the coal belt, Durgapur, Burnpur, Jamshedpur, that's the area where I grew
Yeah.
up. So it was culturally very, very, very strong. And as I said, when you think of these names, it's awesome that you remember Pandit Bhimsen Joshi and M.S. Subbalakshmi. Right from the time when we were very young, we would have these artists come and stay with us. So this discussion with artists, this discussion about creativity, this discussion about how imagination can really bring you so much of beauty and joy. I think these were ideas that we grew up with. Nobody was really teaching them to us, but it was all around us. Along with that, my mother encouraged me to do a lot of creative writing. So I used to win a lot of awards for writing essays and poetry, and they were published at that time. We had the Femina and the Junior Statesman, and a lot of my writings were published right from that time. So I think these things came together, but I stayed with the field of academics for a long time. I did uh, my BA, my MA, and my PhD at Jadavpur University. You come from the same university. And I think
Yeah.
our ideas about, our ideas about sociology, our ideas about society, although we studied literature and economics, the idea that everything, every writer, every creative person really has a certain social space from which they think and from which they write and they contribute to society. So that sort of sociological way of looking at the arts, at the humanities, that happened very strongly during our JU days. And I think a sort of leftist orientation also, which continues right through this idea that you question many things about extremism, you believe very strongly in secular and liberal values. All of that comes from the family, comes from the education which we've had, the sort of friends that we've made, the institution which created our minds. So at that time, after finishing my PhD, I was teaching. I was in academics, and then we moved to Bombay, where I was also teaching and had my wonderful years at St. Xavier's College, teaching English and film studies. But it is around that time that I started writing on cinema for the Times of India, for a magazine by the NFDC called Cinema in India. I was also part of the Film Society movement. So a lot of things were happening together. And my training in Rabindra Sangeet started early with my mother, but in Calcutta, I learned from the late Ashoktoru Bandyopadhyay. And then when I went to Bombay, I learned from an institution called Shahana, which Suchitra Mitra, the legendary Suchitra Mitra, ran and endorsed. She came and did our exams. So it was continuous. I mean, I was having my children, they were growing up, but I kept my music going, my writing
Yeah.
going. It's
Even after coming to the UK,
even after
you have
coming to the UK.
been very close to your cultural root and the Bengali root.
I think by then it's become part of you. So you don't really do away with it. And I think by then you also begin to recognize the things which give you sustenance, things which
Yeah.
give you inner happiness, things which mean something to you.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting that we have this whole discipline of English literature, and it was so wonderful to come to England. I wrote on early 19th century women writers for my PhD. So to go up to Bronte country, to go up to Yorkshire, and then to the Bronte parsonage, or to go to Jane Austen or the other writers' homes, they were like pilgrimages. They
Yeah.
meant you were connecting with history. Even now, right now, you can see my hair still wet. I was at John Keats's house, and I was doing a talk on John Keats because day after tomorrow is his birthday, and
Okay.
this is actually 200 years of his death anniversary. So a very, very long time has passed since he lived here in Hampstead and wrote those very beautiful poems. So I was doing that talk for the students of Delhi University, and that's going to be sent across. So it's I think
It's
in many
very
ways
inspiring, Sangeeta. I must say, very inspiring to the point of being overwhelmingly so for me. I would request my viewers one more time. Let us know how you are enjoying this talk, this chat, and hearing more about Sangeeta as she goes along. Coming back to the present moment, I will talk with you, Sangeeta, more about the Bengali connections in a bit. But before that, tell me about your upcoming project with Javed Akhtar. Anand
uh,
is
with Javed Saab, we've done this the music album called Anant. I
yeah,
have a
yeah.
few of my publications here. So that's Anant, and this is the CD, and there is also a book of poetry with it. What Javed Saab did was he translated Rabindra Sangeet, he translated Tagore's music, 8 songs, and we published those in this album. It was published by Z Music,
Yeah.
and Shomik, my son, who's a composer and a musician himself, he composed the music, he arranged the music, and Javed Saab came and workshopped with some very, very bright, brilliant, talented musicians from the UK. So it was, in a way, a sort of India UK project. And then we recorded the music, and it has traveled to many people who know about Rabindra Sangeet, but language then becomes a barrier because
Yeah.
Tagore wrote originally in Bangla. So all of us, millions of Bengalis who are around the world, know his work very well. But people outside Bengal don't get access to that music. So I had a lot of audience who were very, very pleased that they could understand the words, they could understand the poetry in Hindi, in a language that is wider,
Yeah.
has wider accessibility. And I must tell you this, I was invited to many concerts and many festivals around India at that time as well. We opened here in London, of course. But in India, I remember when I went to Jaipur, and Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt invited me to sing at a classical concert, and there were like the biggest names in classical music over there. And I said, what can I do in this festival, because I'm a Tagore singer? And he said, but Tagore is classical. Tagore is classical for us. And this is the first time we have the songs in a different language. So please come and sing them for us. So it did give me a sense that there are many people out there waiting to enjoy Rabindra Sangeet and the beauty that this music brings to
Yeah.
us. And
Yeah.
it's wonderful to be able to take it to a wider audience.
Yeah. I only came across, I listened to one song only in this from this album Anand, and I would like to share this song that I have already watched. It is so beautiful because obviously Javed Akhtar has done such a brilliant job in translation, keeping the essence of Rabindra Sangeet
Yeah.
truly, like in Bengali, we do the essence is intact, and you have sung so beautifully, Sangeeta.
And with each song, we have stuck to the original tal, we have stuck to the original tune, and the words are exactly
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we
The
mean in
ethos and the
Bangla.
essence are absolutely there because that is one of my very favorite song. Also, the one I'm talking about. I would request the tech support, please, to play the song if possible.
साधक oops साधक बन के प्रेमी बन के बाबर इस जग में आए हो कौन सा वो दीप है जिसको संग लेके तुम इस जग में आए हो
Beautiful. Beautiful says Moonji and Shrudeshna Chatterjee enjoying thoroughly. Aditi Khanna saying, wow, such a lovely rendition and amazing shots too. That's very
Thank you. You can see that we shot it on the banks of the river of the Ganga in Calcutta. And those
yeah,
boatmen over
very
there, it's
nostalgic.
a familiar sight where you can go for a boat ride, a short boat ride under the new Howrah Bridge. And sunset
Yeah.
is very beautiful at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah, very nostalgic shots, really. So, with these Living Bridge conversations, iGlobal brings you many such fun and musical dialogues, heartwarming anecdotes, energetic fitness routines, festive fashion, and recipes, and much, much more. Do stay tuned at the iGlobal social media channels for updates on regular streams with an array of guests that embody the Living Bridge. You can also play back any of the past sessions on our Facebook and YouTube channels. And of course, you, our viewers, are at the heart of these conversations. So do join in with your questions in the comments box to be picked up towards the end of the show. Keep the comments pouring in, please. And we are
iCommunity shines a light on the wide array of community news, arts and culture, and prolific charity efforts within the Asian Diaspora networks. It's where the global Indian impact on the ground is celebrated. Log on at iglobalnews.com.
coming back to Sangeeta Datta, renowned filmmaker, singer, and curator. Sangeeta, please share some experience working with the legends like Rituparna Ghosh, Soumitra Chatterjee.
Well, Rituparna Ghosh today is definitely a legend and an icon in Bengali culture. But for me, he was a class friend, a university friend. He was studying economics when we were studying English. We were in the same arts building. And he was a very shy, very withdrawn sort of a young boy, very, very different from what you saw him change into later. But he was a very deep thinking boy, passionate about cinema, passionate about storytelling. And we used to meet on and off, but much later when his films started winning awards, and when here in England people started saying, oh, there's this young boy, and we are being told that he is following the steps of Satyajit Ray. So that's the point when we decided that we would bring him here to the UK, and it's with a lot of joy that I remember that I showed his films here in the UK, toured him around the UK, where he met the audiences, and thereafter he would come quite often because his films were very often in the London Film Festival. But apart from that, it was also the time that he was transiting from Bengali films to bigger budget films to start Chokhir Bali. He had a much bigger budget. He was starting a film which was going to be bilingual. The Bollywood stars were going to come and work with him. So that's the point when he asked me to work with him. And I joined as associate director for Chokhir Bali. And thereafter, without really having planned it, I worked as associate director with him on 5 films, all the films in which he had the Bollywood talent. So there was The Last Lear with Amitabh Bachchan, there was Raincoat with Ajay Devgan and Aishwarya again. And each one of them have lots of stories to be told about them. We did write a lot about that after his death when we edited the book Rituparna Ghosh, Cinema, Gender and Art. But again, being very close friends, he was so close, he was like a brother. uh, Being so close to artists, I think it's always this absorption that you have, this interest that you have in artistic minds. How do they work? And although sometimes they're creating things of exquisite beauty, their own lives are quite often plunged in desperation and sadness. And how do you really go across this struggle? I was talking about this today, even as I did the talk on John Keats, a poet who wrote such amazingly beautiful poetry, had a life which was sad, had a life which was plunged in sorrow and despair, and he saw a lot of human suffering. and how do we invest in the human imagination, which can give us that glimpse of perfect beauty. Is perfect beauty possible? I think all the arts are continuously asking this question.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Life Goes On is your feature film that is shot in the UK and also in India.
Most of it shot in the UK because it was coming out of my experience as an Indian settled in the UK. So it was a story about a doctor's family, a Bengali doctor with three daughters. And in a way, it was an adaptation of Shakespeare's King Lear because it was about a
Yeah.
father and three daughters.
Okay.
The youngest daughter, whom he loves the most, but the youngest daughter with whom he has the biggest conflict. And it was
Okay.
also written, after 9/11 and after the time when this whole thing about Islamophobia and the distrust about the Muslim community, which today has grown so much and so alarmingly that you really feel worried. But at
Mhm.
that time, you were beginning to sense the uh, first wave of this, and it was happening
Mhm.
directly after 9/11. So it was a film which was asking questions about our prejudices, about community, about religion, about gender. I think the second daughter in that film, who has sexual preferences which are different, where only much later the family realizes, the father, who is this patriarch, he realizes that she is in love with another girl. These were questions which we raised quite early, but they were really coming from stories which were shared by the children in the community with me. These were real life stories. These conflicts were happening in real families, but we put it into this story of a Shakespearean framework. And somehow, because of that Shakespearean adaptation, the film has sustained so much of interest that, of course, at that point, it went to a lot of film festivals and won awards. But it continues to be shown at many platforms. And only
Mhm.
2 years ago, there was this world international conference on women and Shakespeare. And so this film was shown then. And we've just finished editing the book on women in Indian Shakespeares, which will be out very soon. And it's the papers which were presented and the presentations that we did during that conference. So, things keep happening. You create something and then it takes on layers of meaning. And I'm very happy that
Yeah.
there is an audience out there who still see the film, who have lots of questions to ask. And
The
yeah.
cast and crew of this film, they were from India as well as also from UK. How was working and the
Yeah,
experience of
the
working?
crew was entire. It was a British production, so most of the crew was from here. But for the main characters, of course, I had Shomitra and Sharmila Tagore in mind, because for me, as I grew up, Opu Shankar has been such a pivotal film, such an inspiring film all the time,
Yeah.
and it would have been wonderful to bring them together. But that's the time that Shomitra Chatterjee was diagnosed with cancer, and he was
Yeah.
going through his treatment, and he couldn't commit to the strain of a feature film, which involved a month of filming. So Girish Karnat did that role, and Girish has also been an old friend from the time that he was director here at the Nehru Center, and we've spent a lot of creative time uh, talking about theater and cinema, and he was a very, very good friend. So he stepped in and did a wonderful job of playing that character of the Bengali doctor, Dr. Sanjay Banerjee. Then
Okay.
there was Soha Ali Khan, playing mother and daughter with Sharmila Tagore for the first time, perhaps for the
Yeah.
only time, perhaps for the only time. And the other girls, the two other daughters, were from here. Uh, the,
Okay.
uh, the middle daughter, who was a professional actor, and the eldest daughter, Mukulika Banerjee, today is a very well known professor at LSE. She writes on anthropology and She's a writer, she's an academic, but she did that part. And her
Mm-hmm.
daughter, her real life daughter, played her baby daughter in the film. So it was fun.
Okay. Okay. Would you tell me a little bit about your sons? Because they have also they are following your footstep kind of, but they have made a mark. They are making a mark for themselves. They're doing very well. So what my question actually is, mothers like us, we are I can talk about myself. I am like struggling to make my children speak in two different languages, English and Bengali, with equal ease. That is a big struggle for me. Being here in the UK, and your kids, your sons, they are born and brought up here. How any parenting tips from you?
That's a great question. But first of all, my children were not born here. When
Oh,
Tommy
okay.
came, he was 9. He was 9 years old, and my
Okay.
younger son, who was born in Bombay, Shobit, was about 3 years old. So,
Okay.
also, as you know, when we came into this corporate world, I always felt that within 3 4 years I'll go back to India. I never felt that I was migrating. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people have moved at a very early stage in their lives and they've made another country their home. That has never happened with me. For me, I've always had this
You kept
double life,
traveling.
double life and traveling and with my parents there, with a lot of my work which happens over there. I do travel a lot. It becomes
Mm,
quite difficult for me if I'm not in touch with India all the time.
mm,
So yes, but they grew up here and they went to school here, and it's very interesting to see how education and all the other opportunities that are accessible here in this country gave Shomik a lot of possibilities. And he also had his offer in Oxford, but he just decided on certain things himself. And after doing his graduation from UCL, that's when he said that he wanted to learn composition. So he went to Trinity College of Music, and he's formally trained in composition. But he learned the sarod from Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta
yeah.
from the time when he was very young. So that discipline of riyaz, that discipline of practice, which
Yeah.
is true everywhere, not just Indian classical music, every music demands that discipline from you. I think that was something which he got very early in his life. So he built on that. And today he's much more interested in collaborating with other musicians. All through the pandemic time, they have done many new projects where he was really interested in bringing younger musicians who were out of work, who had no income. So he really led about three big projects in through which younger musicians were paid and they were supported. And both Black Lives Matter and the climate change, all of these are things that he takes very seriously, and he wants to associate that in his music. So in COP26 next week, his new animation film Songs of the Earth will be premiered. I can't hear you.
We need to get him sometime on
Yes,
this
you
show. That's
must.
what I
You
was
must.
thinking.
And I must tell you that the younger son, Shovid, who's also a brilliant filmmaker and whose short films have won several awards, even the Cannes Short Film Award he has won 2 years ago. So he's also, his dream is to make feature films, and he's
Yeah.
working towards that, working very hard.
That's wonderful. You mentioned that you can't do without traveling to India. That means without traveling to Calcutta, is it?
Not necessarily. I go to Bombay quite often. My film related work and my music related work, of course, is
Okay.
to do more with Calcutta than with Bombay.
Yeah.
But I miss Bombay a lot. I think the one
Okay.
sort of energy that city has is like
Yeah.
the sort of energy you feel when you go to New York or you go to
Yeah.
Barcelona, a city which is buzzing with energy. And also in
Yeah.
my life, when you're making that transition from a very young um, a person who's starting life, who's starting motherhood, from that you're coming to a slightly more mature stage. I did that transition in Bombay, and
Okay.
teaching there, and enjoying all the wonderful opportunities that one got over there to do multifaceted things. That makes
Yeah.
me miss Bombay a lot.
Yeah, I have also been, I have lived in Mumbai only for 1 year, but everybody says that once you are in Mumbai never leaves you.
Yeah, very
So,
true.
yeah.
Very true.
But
But
talking,
that doesn't take away from the fact that it's true that if I don't see Kolkata for a few months, I do fret a lot. Yeah.
talking about Kolkata, then tell me a little bit about and tell our viewers a little about the Durga Puja that you organize here. And
Yeah, I am part of the Hampstead Durga Puja and Dasera Association. And this, in fact, is the oldest puja in Britain. So today there are so many that I don't even have the right statistics. But there are now Bengali settlements in many cities, and just London itself has multiple pujas
yeah,
because
yeah,
north and south and east and west, and there are increasing and growing numbers. There's Reading. There are all those places where there are pujas attended in very large numbers. But ours, I think, is the oldest because many years ago, when people came to study here, the Bengali men came to study, and I think late 50s. My father was also here studying, and he also lived in Belsize Park, and I live here in Belsize Park today. So it used to be a place with a lot of Bengali students and young people, and they started the puja at that time at the Hampstead Town Hall where our puja happens. So, in a way, we are carrying a great tradition, a great legacy. And everyone who comes here says that they feel as if it's like a Bari Pujo. It's like it's got that very intimate atmosphere. We are not really interested in making this very commercial or really going out there to find sponsors and advertisements and bringing in commercial artists. It's much more something where we are very hands on with the pujo, and the committee is a small committee. Everything has that sense of intimacy. So it's a lot of hard work for those 5 days, and because I grew up with Durga Puja in my own house. My grandmother would do puja, and we have 2 or 3 other people in the committee as well who know the rituals and the way to do everything. That has somehow sort of taken us through. But it's very enjoyable because in a whole year you get to see a lot of friends. Particularly this year, we were meeting people after a whole year, or maybe even after 18 months. So coming back this year to do a physical pujo with all the COVID protocol in place, with restricted access, I think it's not Durga Puja is not so much. I don't define it as a religious puja for me. I think it's a much more cultural platform where we come together, where this whole socializing aspect of things, of coming and worshiping together or just meeting each other, all of that is as important as looking at this as a Hindu practice or a Hindu religion. Uh,
true.
Icon. It is, of course, it is an icon, but Durga is a manifestation of female power, which we want to believe in and feel within ourselves and share that power with the community as well. So Betak, the arts organization that I run, in fact, is completely powered by women. We have a whole team of women who are working behind it. And I think the way Betak has grown, it has this year, the way we've won the Cultural Legacy Award. Whatever's happening there is really happening out of a concerted feminine power, women power, and I think
I
that's
was actually going to ask you that your take on Nari Shakti or women power, but you are actually answering to that now.
yeah.
Then yeah, that is my son is also here talking about kids.
Yeah, I can see this
Yeah.
multitasking that we all have to do.
And that was wonderful, Sangeeta, having you on our show.
Thank you for having me here. I'm not sure how many people are watching, but I hope people will catch up. Even with our BETEC members, a lot of people who are working because it's a working day will catch up later with the viewing. But
Will
it's
do.
been wonderful
It will.
talking to you.
It will. Thank you. Same here. Bye bye.
Bye.
iGlobal Radio is the brand new hub of podcasts for and about global Indians. News, views, interviews, wellness, money matters, and much, much more. Tune in to iGlobal Radio at iglobalnews.com.